It's one of the oldest theories about A Song of Ice and Fire. The names of the direwolves foreshadow the fate of each Stark. But after all we know now, is it still true? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. On this channel we cover the best in fantasy and science fiction, books and TV shows. The Lord of the Rings, A Song of Ice and Fire, and The Witcher. If that sounds good, the subscribe button is in the bottom right of your screen. George R. R. Martin has told us that the first scene he ever devised for A Song of Ice and Fire was the moment when the Starks discover the direwolf pups in the summer snows. It all flowed from there. The symbolism of the moment was apparent straight away. The direwolf was obviously the Stark sigil, the stag the Baratheon sigil, and them both being dead, well, it didn't bode well. But the thing which caught most book readers' attention was the names that the Stark children gave to their direwolves. Yes, they fitted the characters of the animals themselves and sounded like the kinds of things children might name their pets, but they also seemed very foreshadowy. And when the TV show happened, a lot of the theories were proven right, for the TV show at least. But do the direwolf names really tell us about the fate of their owners in the books? George R. R. Martin insists that he is a Gardner writer who doesn't have a fixed plan for where the story goes, and it's clear that the story has shifted a lot since he wrote that scene, so perhaps things have changed, but I'm pretty sure that there is still something in this theory. Oh, and to be clear, as this is sometimes misunderstood, the idea here is that the direwolf name corresponds poetically to the fate of its owner, not to the direwolf's own fate. So let's get into it. In the books, we only know the ultimate fate of one of the Stark children, Robb. His direwolf is named Grey Wind. This is clearly poetic, a grey wind. So we should interpret it poetically. Grey is clearly the Stark colour, and wind, well, it blows for a time and you can see its impact. A strong wind can fell trees and more, leaving carnage in its wake. But ultimately, the wind does stop blowing and things move on. This is a strong analogy for Robb. For a time, he had a huge impact on Westeros, leading the Northern Army to victory after victory, capturing Jaime Lannister, uniting the North and Riverlands in recognising him as king. But then all that was stopped by his death and the Red Wedding, and the story just kept on going. A grey wind that blew hard and strong, but was ultimately not long for this world. Next, we have Jon and Ghost. It's easy to see why Jon called his direwolf Ghost, white fur and silent. But how does it play into his fate in the books? Well, where we left him in the books, he was being killed, although most book readers are sure that he will return. I have my own theories on how that will happen. I suspect he will warg into Ghost as his body dies. His body will be left frozen in the ice cells while they decide what to do with it, and then Jon will go back into his body when it's thawed. To all outsiders, he will appear to have died and then come back, like a ghost dies and then comes back. This all seems quite straightforward, though I think there is another poetic level here too. George R. R. Martin has talked glowingly about how he loves in The Lord of the Rings how Frodo plays his hero's role but is broken by the experience, and that he would like to have that same bittersweet feel for the end of A Song of Ice and Fire. I think Jon is the obvious example for a character who will do this, play their part in saving the world, but be broken by it, having to leave Westeros at the end of it all. A broken man, a ghost of his former self. Sansa's connection to her direwolf, Lady, lasts less than half a book, and it's probably fair to say that her lack of direwolf for most of the series adds to her coming across as less Starkish than her siblings. Certainly she misses out on the skin-changing link the others have, but George R. R. Martin has confirmed that this isn't a matter of Sansa not having those natural magical skills, and it also shouldn't change the foreshadowing nature of her direwolf's name. So how does Lady tie into her fate? Well, she spends a lot of her time in the early books wanting to be a lady, and she will presumably carry on being ladylike. She's not about to don some armour and take to battle, for instance, but her character arc seems strongly to be leading her back to Winterfell and the North. She was so keen to leave there, but finally she is coming around to seeing it as home and possible safety. Might she end up not just as a lady, but the lady of Winterfell? That's certainly what happened on the TV show, and while we shouldn't take that as gospel for what will happen in the books, it does make a lot of sense. Robb is dead, Jon is still a bastard and will presumably sometime be outed as not Ned Stark's son, Bran is seemingly locked into his tree wizard character arc, and Rickon, well, we'll get to Rickon in a bit, but I don't think he will survive, which makes Sansa the heir to Winterfell, or at least potentially the person with the strongest claim. Sansa will be the Lady of Winterfell. I, as direwolf, is Nymeria. Although she was the first to lose her direwolf, she drove her off by throwing stones at her, remember, a very strong bond remained between them. Arya regularly wakes up from wolf dream, and although they are on different continents, Nymeria, who is now the head of a massive wolf pack in the Riverlands, has been seemingly pursuing a Stark agenda, dragging Catelyn Stark's body from the river before she became Lady Stoneheart, attacking Frey supply wagons, and so on. So why the name Nymeria? Well, the original Nymeria was a princess of the Rhoynar who led her people, so the legend goes, on 10,000 ships to land in Dorne, and through battle and marriage found a new home. There is an echo, perhaps, in the direwolf Nymeria leading an ever-expanding superpack of wolves. We last hear of there being hundreds of them. Might it eventually be described as 10,000 wolves? Perhaps. And as far as Arya is concerned, there is the echo of a warrior princess leaving Essos to go to Westeros, and the TV show had her sailing west at the end. I'll be honest though, this seems to be the bit of foreshadowing that is the most vague out of all of the Stark children. It's hard at the moment to imagine Arya settling down to marry someone in Westeros like Princess Nymeria did, or leading a people herself. Perhaps we will have more clues in the Winds of Winter. We can see the outline here, but I suspect there is more. Bran's direwolf, Summer, has been the focus of probably the most speculation over the years. Because although most fans believed that Bran will play a key role in ending the threat from the others, ending the long night and bringing in that dream of spring, surely the better name for Bran's direwolf, therefore, would be morning or dawn after the long night, or perhaps spring after winter, not summer. Summer, thematically, happens long after the end of the story. But if Bran is indeed going to be king when the story ends and rule for a while, then maybe summer is right. Bran's fate is to be the king of summer. Finally, let's look at Rickon. In the books, let's not forget, Rickon is really young. When the books start, he's just 3 or 4 years old, very young to be bringing up a direwolf, and particularly when both his parents leave early on, and then his big brother Robb. Rickon does have parental figures, which leads Rickon to be a bit feral. This will surely be even more the case when we next see him. He has seemingly been hiding out on the island of Skagos with Osha, Shaggy Dog, the notoriously cannibalistic locals, and some horny goats. On a very basic level, he will be unkempt, very much like a shaggy dog. And of course, there's the other meaning of Shaggy Dog. A Shaggy Dog story. A long, rambling tale with lots of irrelevant details and often ending in anticlimax. That seems to be the consensus view of what Rickon's story will pan out to be like. He will probably be brought back into the action by Davos in the Winds of Winter and set up by the Manderleys for potentially becoming the Lord of Winterfell, but will die before that happens. He will have seemingly greater Greenseer powers than even Bran, but never really develop them. He will be thought of as dead while he's still alive, but die soon after he's brought back out of hiding. A long, anticlimactic tale. A Shaggy Dog story. So, Robb and his army blew across Westeros like a vengeful grey wind before dying out. Jon will seemingly come back from the dead like a ghost. Sansa will be the Lady of Winterfell. Arya will be a warrior princess. Bran will rule over summer. And Rickon's tale will be like a Shaggy Dog story. Yes, the Direwolf Name Foreshadowing theory still stacks up, even after the TV show and more than a decade since the last book. But let's see what happens in the Winds of Winter. If you'd like to see more videos about the history and lore of the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, please click on the playlist on the left of your screen. There's a link to my new channel, IDG Live, in the middle of your screen now, or to support this channel, the best way to do that is through Patreon on the right of your screen. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.